So one of the most common problems I see when talking to either potential prospects or new clients during the onboarding period is how do I make sure I don't bring in the wrong person? How do I make sure I only bring in the right type of buyer? And it's a very, very simple answer, yet a lot of people get this completely wrong. And it all comes down to your messaging and your copywriting abilities, right? Very, very simple. And so in this video, I'm going to break down how to attract your desired buyer type, whether that's a high ticket product or service, or you're looking to raise capital for your fund. I'm going to tell you why you're currently attracting the wrong type of people, both on the paid side or even on the organic side. I'm going to go over the mental shift that needs to occur in order for you to attract the right type of people. Oftentimes we get in our own way when it comes to writing copy, and it causes us to either not go after the people we should or fail to speak to that person correctly. Which brings me to point 3. We're going to go over some of the fundamental copy principles that you need to understand in order to bring in the right type of person. And then we'll dive into some of the advanced copy tactics. Now, before I get into any of this, it's very important for you to understand so you don't get ahead of yourself. Number 1, 2, and 3, these are what's going to get you a high return on your ad spend. Number 4 is just going to cause your ROAS to increase. You do not need to understand number 4 in order to run a profitable business. However, if you want to increase your margin and you want to bring more of the right people in, number 4 is going to help you do that. So pay attention till the end. I haven't seen anybody talk about this shit on the internet outside of like little Twitter threads. And we'll get right into it. So number 1, why do you attract the wrong type of people? Well, this can be broken down into 3 key things. The wrong people equal the wrong message. You're either using the wrong words, you're talking about topics nobody cares about, or your proof is too outlandish. It's 9 times out of 10, one of those 3 things. So what do I mean by wrong words? We'll break it down one at a time. So number 1, using wrong words. This one is very, very simple. I want you to think about your word choice. Your word choice is one of the most important things in any piece of copy. And I want you to think about this in a scenario I tell people all the time, more on the motivational side, but in general, it changes a lot. I want you to think about the saying, I hope the best for you, versus the best is yet to come, or the best will come. There is a difference between the word will and hope, or yet and hope, right? Yet precedes a level of uncertainty, or hope does, right? If I'm hoping for the best, well, then I'm kind of raising my hand and I'm saying like, hey, pick me. Like, I hope it's me, but I don't know. Whereas if I say the word will, I know that this will happen. Right? And so just that subtle change in words shifts the entire perception and internalization of the statement, right? Because behind every statement, intentions can be the same. Intentions can be the same between like 60 different things. The way that you present those intentions dictate how they are perceived and whether you speak to the right person or not. And so let's think about this as if we're talking to, let's say, accredited investors, right? Or real estate investors, whether it's on the info side or the capital raising side. I can use a word like bankroll, and I can almost guarantee that I will not attract the right type of person. Or if I do attract somebody, it's going to be few and far between. Why is this? Because bankroll is often associated with gambling, and it's associated with like e-com, stuff like that. Instead, if I use the word capital, I'm 1,000 times more likely to bring in an investor. Let's think about this in practice. If I say something like, if you're an accredited investor with 100K bankroll ready to deploy, immediately you're going to be like, who is this guy saying bankroll? I do not trust him. Like, get away. Whereas if I say, if you're an accredited investor with over $3 million in liquid capital ready to deploy into your next commercial property, like residential portfolio, new business, right? Whatever it is, but liquid capital, I'm much more likely to attract the right type of person. And so that is why using the wrong words can often hinder you, because without even realizing, even if you have the right intention and you're saying a lot of the right things, using the wrong words shows A, you don't know what you're talking about, but B, it's going to deter people. Not only will it show that you don't know what you're doing, but it's going to push people away because they immediately go, oh, they don't know what they're doing. And so that goes into using the wrong words. Now, the second one that I think is extremely important is topics. And I want you to think about picking topics as if you're a dad taking your sick little girl to the hospital, right? If you're the dad, all of your attention is going to be on that girl, right? I don't care if you have work. I don't care if you have other obligations in life. You will have 100% of your focus on this girl or your daughter, and none of it's going to be on anything else. That is the power of having the right topic. The right topic will attract my attention better than anything else, because I immediately go, this is more important than my wedding, than my kids, than my this, than my that, whatever it is. If you say the right things, you will cause somebody's ear to perk up and they will go straight towards you, or straight towards the ad, or straight into your funnel. The other thing I want you to understand with topics specifically is I want you to think about it as if you are speaking to a buyer and they exist within a canvas. Let's say it's a painting. This is your buyer. If I speak about the right topics, I show that I am understanding the landscape they're living in. Maybe they have green grass, they have a nice one-story house, they have a pretty wife, right? Some kids, some nice clouds and a blue sky, right? If I speak about the right topics, I'm addressing these things as if I know what they need. Whereas if I speak about the wrong topics, let's say I talk about you live in a hut on the desert, you aren't married, you have an adopted child, it rains all the time, somehow in the desert, don't ask me why. Immediately you're going to go, oh, this guy's talking about topics that don't apply to me, so there's no point in listening. On to the next. And so that is going to be the most important part about topics specifically, is it shows that you understand their situation, and it shows, or it increases your ability to capture their attention. And so again, you need to make sure you're not using the wrong words, and you need to make sure you're using the right topics. The last point with what will often deter people, and I actually experienced this on a call with a client today, is proof. And this one's actually very fascinating. So what was interesting about the specific situation we were in is our offer, the offer that we're running, tends to get a really big and good result. And this is on average. Like logically, this is what the data says. The problem is when someone looks at this from the outside, they go, oh man, I don't think that's possible for me, right? That is such a big result. Like, how do I know you're not lying? And so oftentimes what you need to do with proof is you need to show them a little more realistic result. And this often gets buy-in. Because if every single person won the lottery, well, then everybody would be skeptical that the lottery even worked, or why would it be a lottery in the first place, right? You'd begin to question the entire mechanism itself. Whereas by showing a result that is much more attainable, the likelihood of success increases, and therefore people's believability increases. And so what we'll often do on accounts is show the minimum result. Like, look, if you only watch like 4% of the courses, you don't do anything, and you apply the one tip we tell you in onboarding, you'll get a 10% lift in close rate, right? Or whatever it is. You know, you give them the minimum. Like, hey, this is Joe. Joe didn't do anything in the program except the one thing we did on our onboarding call. He saw a 10% increase in his close rate. So at minimum, if you don't do anything inside of here, you can at least get that, you know? Whereas if I'm constantly sharing the big results, that's a problem. Here's where it gets interesting though, and I'll go back to that story with the client, is if your typical result is massive, your mind logically goes to, well, yeah, but it's true, and people buy with logic, right? If this is a true statement, then of course I'm going to talk about it. It's true. And it's like, actually, that can hurt you. You know, it's like when you go on a date. If you go on a date and you start talking about how much money you make, People are like, do you really make that much money? Are you really that successful? Not just for a date, anything. Anytime you talk about how much money you make, it's like, okay, why? Why are you telling me this? Do you really make that much money? And so oftentimes, the more grandiose, the more bold the claim, the more likely you are to deter your potential buyer from buying. And so with proof, we want to show realistic proof. And so those are the three big things that cause people to go away is they're using the wrong words, they're speaking about the wrong topics, or they have proof that is just way too out there. So this leads me to my second point. How do we actually go about finding the right people? And the first thing you need to understand before we do any of that is the mental shift that needs to occur in order for you to write good copy and have good messaging. I want you to think about yourself existing in some degree of a silo. Now, in certain situations, you may be the buyer you're selling to, and so you don't exist in this silo. But let's just say you run an agency like myself, or it's the first time you're marketing to these people. Maybe you've gone so far ahead that now you're trying to work your way back to where you were in the beginning. Well, what oftentimes happens is you begin to exist in a silo. And so you don't believe that certain people will pay $50K for coaching or invest $6 million into your fund, right? You don't believe that to be even possible, all because you exist in a silo, right? And it's causing you to limit what you think is possible. Whereas in reality, all you're doing is shutting yourself out from making more money. Because there are people that want to spend $50K on coaching. There are people that want to invest $6 million into a fund. They just need to know where to deploy it. Just because you don't have the same resources or you wouldn't take the same action does not mean that these people don't exist. This is a very common problem with more archaic industries like real estate, right? Oftentimes real estate guys are like, well, I don't think I can get leads from the internet. I don't think somebody's going to hand me $6 million over the phone. It doesn't make sense. I don't think somebody's going to pay $50K for a program over text. Fuck you. You don't know anything. You only know what's inside of your own silo. And so the mental shift that needs to occur is you need to step outside of yourself and realize that there are people that will pay for these things. There are billions of people on the internet. You don't think any of those people are different than you, right? It goes back to this whole situation. Just because you exist here does not mean someone doesn't exist here. And so the mental shift that needs to occur is you need to step outside of your silo in order to start grabbing all the money and start making money, right? So super, super simple mental shift that will allow you to then begin writing copy that serves you and your business, which brings me to the fundamentals. And this is key to any business. You've probably heard me say this in other videos as well. When writing copy, you have to ask yourself 3 questions about your potential buyer. Who are they? What do they want? Where can I find them? Or who does this person want to become? What resources does this person have? Where are they currently at in their journey? What have they tried in the past? And so you want to ask these 3 questions in a bunch of different ways to then begin painting that picture. Because you start with who you want. You kind of have some ideas to the who. But then you need to go, okay, where are they? Well, they're in some green grass. What do they have? They have a nice house. They have a wife. They have some kids, right? Where are they? Oh, they're in a nice area, some nice clouds, some blue skies. And so you begin to, by answering these questions, you begin to paint the picture of where your desired buyer is. Now, where do we get the answers to these questions? That's the key part. Because again, remember, you currently exist in a silo, which is why you need to learn to step outside of it. And if you make any claims and assumptions yourself, you might as well be lighting your money on fire because you don't know anything. You are not this type of buyer, or you cannot assume what this buyer wants. And so we begin to answer these questions through market research. And what you are going to do, that's not how you spell that, but what you are going to do is you are going to look on places like Reddit, forums, Facebook, right? Social media. You are going to go frequent where these people exist. And for social media and all these specifically as well, go to the comments. Don't just watch the videos. No one gives a shit about the videos. It's all about the comments. But you're gonna go to these different places, and you're going to answer these questions. Who's there? What do they want? What do they have? What have they tried in the past? Where have they failed? Have they bought other programs? Have they invested in other funds that went south? Right? Where have they gotten stuck? What are the limiting beliefs that they currently have? What objections do they have? Who is this person? Where do they live? Right? What does their family life look like? What are their goals? Where are they at in their life journey? And again, I can ask these questions using these in a ton of different ways to paint this picture around who I'm looking for. And so again, I'll go to these different places to pull market research. I can also use a platform like Manus or ChatGPT or something else to do this research for me. Just a large language model to do a lot of that research. Again, prompting is going to be huge. If you want to learn more about how we prompt in the consulting side of our business, or you're looking for us to just do this for you, you can click the link below, apply to work with myself or a member of our team. You'll speak to myself or a member of the team, and you can learn a little bit more about what we do on the done for you or the consulting side for running ads. But the big thing, again, is this market research piece is huge. Because what then happens is you're able to piece these questions together, the who, what, and where, to create ads and messaging that converts. And so one of the examples that we use all the time is a common hook that we'll do in all of our ads when we first start running. If you're ABC person and you have XYZ to deploy, and you want to invest in GHI, right? What I've done is I've answered who, you, who, ABC, what. So what, capital, where. Want to invest in, I don't know, car washes, right? Whatever it is, what I've done is in the hook, I've stated exactly who I want to come through my funnel. Who I want to click on my ad, who I want to book a call, who I want to learn more, right? For example, with this, if you're in a high ticket service-based business and you have $30,000 you're looking to deploy in your first ad campaign on Facebook, and you know that Meta is the way to go, you want to invest in an agency, you want to work with someone that knows what they're doing, pay close attention, because this is how we're different than every other agency, right? Now, is that the best copy in the world? No, but what I've done is I've said, look, if you're in a high ticket service-based business, A, and you have 30K to deploy, B, because that's our minimum test budget on accounts, and you want to invest in an agency to do this for you, boom, there you go. I've stated exactly who I want. And so that explains like the fundamentals of copy, is it's market research to begin painting this picture so that when you write your copy, it's very, very straightforward. And that's all you're doing. If you nail those three things, you understand why you're bringing in the wrong people in the first place, you undergo the mental shift that's required to write and speak to those types of people that you want to attract, and you master just these three questions, literally just these three, you can run profitable campaigns. Now, let's say you've done all of that, or you're bringing in the right type of people and you really want to take it to the next level. Here are some advanced tips to really just juice your campaigns. Now, I want you to think about what you see 9 times out of 10 when you watch any type of ad. Typically, you're being told what to do. And no one likes that. We didn't like that when we were kids. We don't like that now, especially if you're speaking to entrepreneurs or investors who have created their own wealth, created their own freedom. And again, if you use those fundamental principles, you can still tell people what to do to some degree and it will work. But let me paint this for you in terms of what this might sound like. You may go, look, if you're an investor looking to do X, Y, and Z, you are tired of this. You're sick of feeling this way. You know that this. And again, I'm painting that picture, but what I'm also doing is I am making statements at you. I'm telling you who you are. No one likes to be told who they are. And so it causes there to be some level of resistance. Now, how much will this affect the campaigns? Not a ton, again, but it will cause a significant lift in the amount of ad dollars you're able to bring off of the back end. And so this brings me to the first point of the advanced copy is you have to understand how to label your prospects. Because again, you don't want to tell people what to do. You want to let them make their own decisions. And so I may say something like this. Let's say I'm speaking to an individual and I want them to take a certain action. And I need to label them as this type of person. Instead of saying, oh, you're just the type of person who would be interested in this thing, let me tell you all about it. I would say something like, look, you already know that all those other investments, they just don't make sense. Would it be okay if I shared? And what I've then done is they have now boxed themselves out of everything else and started sending themselves towards you. Because again, I'm pushing them away. More of a crude example that I like to use is, let's say you're on a date with a woman and you say, yeah, you're the type of girl that would sleep with me on the first date. Well, you've just labeled them as, I won't use the word, and now there's no way they do it because you've just told them what to do. Whereas if I want any chance at getting lucky at the end of the night, and I'm, again, exaggerating this, but if I say something like, look, I can already tell you're not like every other girl. Again, but that immediately opens me up. I have not pushed them away. Super, super simple with labels. Now, the second thing you're going to want to do when you speak in this way is you want to get the individual to feel justified in their train of thought. Again, because we are not telling them, we are getting them to agree and then say, yeah, I want this thing. So for example, I may say something like, look, if you're sitting there and you're struggling to close deals in your high ticket service-based business, it's not your fault. I've now justified that the thing that they're having trouble with is not their fault. And then they go, oh, awesome. Okay, well, cool. Or if I say, look, if you're sitting there and you're feeling like all the sales processes of today no longer work, you're totally right in thinking that. In fact, that is the case with 99% of whatever. And I've just justified their current belief state. So again, I have labeled them as the person I want. I've gotten them to feel justified in the way that they think. And now I'm able to flow into the rest of the ad. And so in practice, what this looks like is instead of saying, look, you're tired of this, you're tired of that, you're sick of this, you say things like, look, I don't have to tell you, you already know that all the marketing agencies out there today suck and they don't know what they're talking about, right? You're sitting there and you want help selling your high ticket product or service, and you know that you need a real professional, not one of these kids on the internet that says they can be your growth operator. You already know that. I don't have to tell you this. Right? I've seen it all the time too myself. And I felt that way. I've sat here and again, I go into describing a little bit more about the situation, but I'm saying things like, you already know. I don't have to tell you. You might be. Right? If you're sitting there feeling, I'm not telling them, you're feeling this, you're doing that. I'm opening it up to them saying like, yeah, I am in that position. And so that's the biggest thing with the advanced copy techniques versus traditional is once I've understood who I'm speaking to specifically, I want to label them as the type of person that takes the action. And then I want to justify any beliefs that they currently have, right? Without telling them. I want to just say, yeah, you're right. And then you go into the next part of the ad. The last thing that you really need to do is be able to drive urgency. And this is something that I won't get into the tactics so much here, but more from a conceptual standpoint, is your ability to drive urgency will compress sales cycles. So instead of taking this whole time, you can take it to here. All because you have stressed the importance of taking action. It's like Y2K, for example, right? This is one of those things that caused people to panic, start prepping, do all this doomsday shit, all because there was impending doom with the internet, right? I want my business to feel like Y2K. I want my business to feel like that movie 2012 where the world's going to end. where you're going to take massive action. That is like key to all of this. And so those are some of the key things in terms of advanced copy that if you apply will help you bring in the right type of people. Again, if you want help with that, just click the link below, apply to work with the agency. We'll ask you a couple of questions. Again, you do have to be willing to spend between 15 and 30 grand on a test budget. But we can help you apply this, or you can work with us from a consulting perspective. We can answer any of your questions you have there. But that's a big thing. Again, if you guys understand you understand why you're attracting the wrong people, you understand the basic mental shift that needs to occur in order for you to bring in the right people, you have a good understanding of your fundamental copy principles, and you nail these 3 first, then you stack these advanced copy tactics on top of it, bringing in the right type of buyer will be like pressing the easy button, right? It'll become so easy. Sorry, I just have to draw this. It'll be so easy. You'll wonder why you ever struggled to close deals and bring in the type of buyers, investors that you wanted in the first place. So hope this helps, guys. If you want more content like this, like, comment, subscribe, drop your biggest takeaway in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.